Hello YouTube friends, Dr. Teresa Ulrich here. In just a few days the Dwarf Seahorses are going to arrive. If you had a chance to look at any of the previous videos in this chronicle and my preparation for seahorses, you can see that I have this new tank set up with a very simple filter. And I have added a little nightlight lamp so that when the lights turn off on the seahorse tank, they have a constant light and it doesn't shock them as much. You might notice if you've ever kept seahorses, when the lights come on or off, they kind of jerk a little bit because they're shocked, either from the brightness or the sudden darkness. So I was kind of hoping to offset that a little bit by just keeping a little night light running next to the tank. And then down below, I have set up a new hatching situation. Again, if you were watching previous videos, I tried hatching out some old brine and did not have luck. I ended up adding a stronger light that heated up the water, and that didn't help. And I was using originally a vessel that I had never used before to hatch shrimp, so I switched out to this more traditional or old-fashioned kind of hatcher. I'm going to turn on my light here, see if you can see. What I've done here is I have set up the hatcher inside of another aquarium, and when you see what I've done, let me take this light off and put it over here. There's a lid here, and I have both the dwarf tank and the housing for the hatchery hooked up to one double outlet air pump. So I'm getting air just from one electrical source here. And let me set the camera down. What I'm going to do now is start preparing on the next batch, the next batch of brine shrimp. I'm using a different kind. I ended up just throwing away the other. And what I like about this setup that I have here is it will stay warmer. I was trying to hatch out down in the laundry room in the basement where it's definitely cooler. What I'm pouring in here is pre-mixed salt water. I know some people like to measure out things exactly, check the pH so they get the optimum hatching. I really don't worry about that much. I just like to keep it as simple as possible. But what I have done is I have acquired some decapsulated brine shrimp. There are a couple of advantages of using decapsulated brine shrimp. This is shrimp that has had the shells removed, and most of us can find online the method for doing it ourselves, but it is quite tedious and it requires skill with timing. To me, it was worth purchasing a container of this. This is probably going to last me several months, so even with the shipping cost, it's worth the purchase to me. So by using decapsulated brine, I don't have to manually separate the shells from the Artemia napoli that come out of the shell when they hatch. And it's just less mess. It's less time consuming. But another benefit is it's more nutritious because the brine shrimp don't require as much energy to hatch out. They don't have to escape from that shell. The shell is already removed. So a lot of their egg yolk that is attached to them remains with them. So if you were to hatch out the brine shrimp and feed it to your dwarf seahorses right away, they would be getting the optimum nutritional value. But there is another benefit to hatching out with decapsulated brine shrimp. There's some debate going on in the seahorse world, but I've had dwarf seahorses before, and inevitably something happens where in the seahorse tank are creatures called hydroids that develop. And the best that I can describe them as, in their free floating state, they kind of look like little jellyfish, but in their reproduction state, they kind of look like spider webs. But what they do is they thrive on all the brine shrimp in the tank, and they create a mass network of stinging cells that are really, really bad for the dwarf seahorses. Sorry about all the background noise. There's a phone and a computer in the background, and apparently there are messages coming through, so sorry if that's distracting. But anyway, some believe that the hydroids, they survive in a dry state on brine shrimp eggs, and when you hatch out the brine shrimp with the shells on, you can introduce hydroids into the tank. There is debate on that. Some claim that that is absolutely not true, that hydroids are introduced in other ways. I don't really know for sure, but supposedly, because of the process that decapsulating brine shrimp's eggs go through, they basically have their shell stripped off by sitting in a bleach formula. So the theory is that those hydroids that may be lingering in that dry state in regular brine shrimp eggs get destroyed in that bleaching process. So that is one advantage, but if somehow I end up with hydroids in my tanks, you know, there are some steps we can take, and that will just be another part of the chronicle. But what I'm going to do now is prepare the hatching setup here. This is a brand new bottle, and you'll notice it's clear on top, and so this does need to be shaken up, and you want equal distribution so it's uniformly colored. Looks like there's a lot still stuck on the bottom here. I'm going to just turn it upside down and shake it like that for a bit. It's really, really stuck down there. Look, you can still see it sitting at the top, even though I have it inverted. So I'm going to keep shaking it until it looks like I've got that all off. Oh, just about perfect. Look how dark and rich that is right now. So the supposed measurement for approximately 2 liters or a little less is 1 capful. I think that's an awful lot. I'm going to try the 1 capful and pour it in here. And then I'm going to put it right in my hatchery. Another benefit of decapsulated brine shrimp is it doesn't take as long to hatch. Most brine shrimp require at least 24 hours, the regular shell on, but decapsulated brine can hatch as soon as 12 to 18 hours depending on how warm the hatching environment is. So what I'm going to do now is put my plastic cover back on, and I just love this setup because it's so simple. I can hatch right up here just below my tank for the seahorses. I'll take advantage of the heat that naturally occurs in the upstairs part of a home. And I don't have a super strong light on here. It's just one of those energy conserving spiral bulbs that fits into this size socket. So there will be some heat generated, but I'm not as worried about generating as much heat as I needed to have when the hatchery was downstairs in my basement. I can leave this up here. It will be convenient. And I'm going to let this go for about 24 hours, and we'll check and see if I have success this time hatching out the brine. And I'll show you the process that I use for the next steps of preparing the brine so that they're going to be the most nutritious as possible for the seahorses. I'm just going to tilt that back a little bit so that you can see the whole setup. And everything looks good. The light does need to be on there. As I mentioned in a previous video, light is one of the activators that helps the brine shrimp hatch out. That's what gives it its signal. And here's our setup. We are all set to go. It looks so pretty and so cute. Very simple, but I think this is going to be a great setup. So next time I check in with you, we'll see how our brine shrimp did, if it did indeed hatch out. And then, like I said, we'll look at next steps in preparing the brine so it is the most nutritious for the dwarf seahorses. Thanks so much for joining me. It's great to be with you.